Assalamu alaikum, dear students. This is going to be the third lecture on the rape of the lock from its Canto 3. I'm sure you would definitely enjoy its reading. We are on its line 75. Look at it now. She fears Belinda on the barren flies, with more than usual lightning in her eyes. Now Belinda is ready to fight a war against her enemy. She has, after all, to get back her lock of hair. It's going to be a deadly fight, but she is prepared for it. She is not afraid of her foe, nor feared the chief, the unequal fight to try, who sought no more than on his foe to die. She doesn't bother about her enemy or her foe. She knows that she can easily defeat him. Such flirting lovers are just at her beck and call. They just die on her. They just surrender before her. But this bold lord, with manly strength endued, she with one finger and a thumb subdued. Now this lord, who was considered to be brave, courageous among the people, who was supposed to have manly strength in him, was easily defeated by this beautiful lady Belinda just by using a single finger and a thumb. Now, how did she do this? You would definitely laugh at the way she did it. Just where the breath of life his nostrils drew, a charge of snuff the wily virgin threw. Now, what did she do? She took up some snuff, and by using her finger and thumb, she threw that snuff into the nostrils of that baron, and it was quite fatal. The gnomes direct to every atom just the pungent grains of titillating dust. Now the gnomes help her. They help her perform that action of throwing the snuff into his nostrils. They direct every atom of that powdered snuff to enter the nostrils of that young man, and they begin to titillate her, and he is quite disturbed. Sudden, with starting tears, each eye overflows, and the high doom re-echoes to his nose. Now water begins to come out of his eyes. Of course, that dust of the snuff is easy to disturb him. He begins to rather shed tears and also begins to produce strange noises out of his nose. Now meet thy fate, incensed Belinda cried, and drew a deadly bodkin from her side. Now this time Belinda comes up with another weapon in her hand, another deadly weapon, that is her bodkin, a sort of pin. At the same time she shouts and challenges the baron and asks him to be ready for that fight and meet his fate. She is quite angry over him. The same is ancient personage to deck. Her great grandsire wore about his neck. Now it was the same bodkin. The bodkin was made up of the same material with which one time a sort of ornament was made for her great grandsire. He used to wear it round his neck, and it was in the form of 3 seal rings. Later on, after the death of her great grandparents, it was melted. So the poet says, in 3 seal rings, which after melted down, formed a vast buckle for his widow's gown. After the death of her great grandfather, that seal ring was melted and it was changed into a sort of buckle. It was used by his widow for her gown. Her infant grandam's whistle next it grew. The bell she jingled and the whistles blew. Later on, this buckle was changed into a whistle and it was used by her grandmother. She used to jingle the bell whenever she was outside, or whenever perhaps she was playing with something, or whenever she was perhaps with her friends. All the same, it was converted into a whistle for her grandmother. Then, in a bodkin, graced her mother's hairs, which long she wore and now Belinda wears. Afterwards, that is after perhaps the death of her grandmother, the whistle was transformed into a bodkin, and this bodkin was used by her mother for her hair. She used to tie up her hair by using that bodkin, and later on she inherited that bodkin from her mother, and now she was wearing it, she was using it. Boast not my fall, he cried, insulting foe. Thou by some other shalt be laid as low. Now our enemy tries to become courageous. He tries to rather defeat her just by using words. He reminds her that one day she would be defeated by somebody else, so she should not be proud of her victory. Nor think to die dejects my lofty mind. All that I dread is leaving you behind. He makes it clear that this sort of defeat is not going to depress or deject or disappoint him in any way. He has still got great aims in his mind. He is still ambitious. He is only afraid of one thing. And what is that one thing? He is going to leave her behind him. It would be quite shocking for him that there would be other lovers enjoying in the company of that beautiful lady. Rather than so, let me still survive and burn in Cupid's flame, but burn alive. She wants her to leave him, to allow him to continue to live, to continue to survive. He would rather like to burn in the flames of Cupid. Cupid, once again a Greek legendary figure, a Greek god, god of love. In other words, he wants to remain alive and wants to rather burn in the fire of love. Restore the lark, she cries, and all around, restore the lark, the vaulted roofs rebound. Now the only words of Lady Belinda are, restore the lark. She wants him to return her lock of hair. Nothing else does she want. And the high roofs of that club resound with the loud voice produced by that lady. Not fierce Othello, in so loud a strain, roared for the handkerchief that caused his pain. The poet once again gives a reference, an allusion to Othello, a well-known tragedy by Shakespeare. Even Othello would not have shouted so loudly when he had to suffer for the handkerchief. He would not have talked of that handkerchief so loudly and so painfully as did Belinda on the loss of her lock of hair. But see how oft ambitious aims are crossed, and chiefs contend till all the prize is lost. Now, unfortunately, our great aims are quite often crossed, that are quite often they are frustrated. We are unable to achieve them. They remain unfulfilled, especially when the big people, here the poet calls them the chiefs, ironically. Such great, courageous people fight for that great prize. Same thing happened to that prize, that is the lock of hair of Belinda. That prize was lost. The lock, obtained with guilt and kept with pain, in every place is sought, but sought in vain. Now something had happened to that lock of hair. That lord had obtained it with a great effort. He had kept it with him, in spite of the fact that he was called guilty by others. But it was lost somehow. They tried to find it everywhere, but it was all in vain. With such a prize, no mortal must be blessed, so heaven's decrees. With heaven, who can contest? Now it was a great prize. The heaven, that is the gods, were not ready to allow the people, ordinary people, to keep such a great prize with them. Now nobody can challenge the decisions of the heaven, the decisions of God. So they were deprived of that great gift. This gift was taken back by the heaven from them. Some thought it mounted to the lunar sphere, since all things lost on earth are treasured there. Some people thought that perhaps it had gone to the moon. It was lost on the perhaps deserts or the great depressions of the moon, because people believe that all those things which are lost on earth are saved or treasured on the surface of the moon. Their heroes' wits are kept in ponderous vases and bows in snuff boxes and tweezers cases. The things like the wits of the heroes and the snuff of gentlemen like that lord are found on the surface of the moon. The one in some big huge vase and the other in some tweezer case. Their broken vows and deathbed arms are found, and lovers' hearts with ends of riband bound. Now, promises which are quite often broken are found on the surface of the moon, and the arm that is people usually give at the time of their death are also found at the same place on the same lunar sphere. Now the lovers' hearts are also found tied up together on the lunar sphere. So we can conclude that the people believed that the things which were lost on the earth were to be found on the surface of the moon. The courtier's promises and sick man's prayers, the smiles of harlots and the tears of heirs, cages for gnats and chains to yoke of flea, dried butterflies and tombs of casuistry. There is an irony the way the poet talks of these things. He refers to these things because these things are usually bogus, false. One of them is the promise of the courtier. Of course, such promises are usually false. And the second thing is the prayer of the sick man. When he is on his deathbed, about to die, he begins to pray. And the third thing is the smile of the harlots, the bad charactered women. And the fourth one is the tears of the heirs. The heirs begin to shed tears on the death of their parents, whereas inwardly they are happy. So all these things, courtiers' promises, sick man's prayers, smiles of prostitutes, and the tears of heirs, all are found on the moon. Cages for gnats and chains to yoke of flea, dried butterflies and tombs of casuistry. The other things are such meaningless, insignificant things. For example, cages for gnats, an insignificant thing, Nobody can make up a cage for the gnat. No cage can rather keep a gnat in it. A gnat is a sort of an insect, just like a wasp. And second thing is to yoke a flea, another impossibility. And the third thing is butterflies, dried up butterflies. So things like cages for gnats, chains to yoke up a flea, and dried butterflies, and also big books of history containing most of the false incidents are all found on the moon. But trust the muse, she saw it upward rise, though marked by none but quick poetic eyes. But we should believe the muse. The muse should be right after all. She is the goddess of poetry and music. She herself saw it, flying upward in the air. It was noticed by nobody else, but the muse saw it, and she saw it through her poetic eyes. So, in poetry, this thing should be preserved. So Rome's great founder, to the heavens withdrew, to Proculus alone confessed in view. Same thing happened to the great founder of the Empire of Rome. He died, and it was said that he rather retired to the moon. Nobody could see his flight to the moon. It was Proculus alone, a great Roman poet, who described this thing in his poetry. So this thing could be seen only through the poetic eyes of Proculus. A sudden star, it shot through liquid air and threw behind a radiant trail of air. Now, how did he find it? He described it as a star that suddenly appeared in the heaven. It moved through the air, and while moving quite fast, it left behind a shining trail of air. Not Berenice's locks first rose so bright, the heavens bespangling with dishevelled light. Even another legendary figure, Berenice, who used to have great locks of hair, could not claim such great fame. That lock of hair was quite bright. It was enough to bespangle the sky, to rather decorate the sky, but it could not be matched with the rare beauty the lock of hair of Belinda had got. The sails behold it, kindling as it flies, and pleased pursue its progress through the skies. So the sylphs noticed this thing. Nobody else could notice it, but the sylphs saw it. They saw it flying through the air. It kept on moving through the air. In the meantime, it was shining. It was bright. They kept on noticing its progress, its onward movement, until it reached the height of the heaven. This the beau monde shall from the mall survey, and hail with music its propitious ray. Now the people, the lovers who wander through the mall of the city called London, will observe that lock of hair bespangling the sky just like a star, and they will admire it with their great music. They will consider it as a sign of great favor, a sign of rather happiness. This the blessed lovers shall for Venus take, and send up vows from Rosamunda's lake. Lovers will also observe the same star that is actually the lock of hair of Belinda, and they will consider it as a symptom of their favorable love, and they will make promises by swearing, or rather I should say they would rather consider it as the symptom of their true love, sign of their true love. This partridge soon shall view in cloudless skies, when next he looks through Galileo eyes. Now, it is also going to be a great blessing, something quite useful for great scientists, for those rather who work in space science. People like Partridge will observe a number of things whenever the sky is cloudless, whenever the sky is clear. He will also observe the beautiful lock of hair of Belinda through Galileo's eyes. Galileo's eyes means the telescope. And hence the egregious wizard shall foredoom the fate of Louis and the fall of Rome. Now, it will equally be helpful for the wizard or the palmist or the or those who are called astrologists or astronomers. They would study the stars, they would study the position of the lock of hair of Belinda, and with the help of that position, they will be able to foretell whatever was going to happen to the empire of Louis or whatever was going to happen to the empire of Rome. Then sees bright nymph to mar thy ravished hair, which adds new glory to the shining sapphire. So the nymph, that is Belinda, need not to worry. She should rather be proud of her lock of hair. Of course, it was ravished, but actually in this way it got a great fame. It added to the glory of the shining star. It decorated the sky. Not all the tresses that fair head can boast shall draw such envy as the lock you lost. Of course, there are other ladies as much beautiful as Belinda is. They have got as much beautiful tresses, but no other tress, no other lock of hair can boast of such a great fame as was got by that lady Belinda. Her fair lock of hair went to the height of the heaven, and it began to decorate the sky. So other beautiful ladies must be rather jealous of her, envious of the luck her lock of hair got. For after all the murders of your eye, when after millions slain yourself shall die. The poet once again makes use of the poetic rather weapons or instruments. He reminds us that she has got deadly eyes. The beauty of her eyes is enough to kill anybody. After the death of millions of people, a number of people, that lady will die. She will cause the death of rather scores of, even hundreds, thousands of other people. When those fair suns shall set, as set they must, and all those tresses shall be laid in dust. So she says that all those fair, beautiful sons, that is, the beautiful lady, beautiful people like Belinda, will have to set one day, they will have to die one day. It is destined for mankind, predestined for mankind. He has to die one day. The fair sons have to set one day. The beautiful ladies have to die one day. They have to lose their beauty. And their beautiful locks of hair are laid to dust one day. This thing must happen. This lock the muse shall consecrate to fame, and midst the stars inscribe Belinda's name. Now this lock of hair of Belinda has got quite great luck, because Muse will continue to mention it. The Muse will declare it as secret or holy, It will be famous all over the world. People will admire it. People will find it shining as a star in the height of the heaven. And it is enough to rather maintain or retain the name of Belinda. She will be remembered by the people for her rare, great lock of hair. That's all, my dear students. Allah Hafiz.